I wonder, this is if I can shift topic, or we just so we talk about what's coming out in 1.4, 1.5, but I'm actually not completely up to date with what has been revealed about that. So without like trying for any big reveals, like what's coming, like what's in the pipe that that you can tell us?
So we talked a bit earlier in this panel about how integrating with the NPM ecosystem means that Meteor developers are sharing the experience and the wisdom of NPM and Node developers more than ever before. That's part of that story. Another big part of it, though, is that Meteor 1.3, well, backing up a step, Meteor comes with a version of Node, right? And it's been a great assumption for us to be able to make that you're using a specific version of Node with each version of Meteor, and you don't have to worry about that, and we get to assume that that's the version you're using. We don't have to think about all the different versions of Node that people might already have installed on their systems, because we just ignore that. But that version is 0.10.46 as of Meteor 1.3.4.4. Which just got released today. And since the 0.10 line of Node versions, well, there was 0.11 and 0.12.
A couple updates.
Yeah, and then the Node community had like a religious schism. IO.js forked the Node repository because they were unhappy with how quickly decisions were being made and with how much input from the community. And so they went off and released a couple of major versions of something called IO.js, which was a fork of Node. And meanwhile, the Node team kept on working on Node at their slower pace. Thankfully, and this is actually truly amazing and a sign of the maturity of the JavaScript community, there's been a reconciliation of IO.js and Node. But since then, we've gotten Node 4, and then an experimental version, Node 5, and now there's Node 6, right? So that's like 0.10, 11, 12, IO.js, Node 4, 5, and 6, right? So all of that is to say that Node 0.10 is kind of old by now. It's still under long-term support, so that's how we can get away with shipping it. But it's only going to be receiving security updates and such until October of this year, I believe. So it is of real urgency that we ship a newer version of Node with Meteor. Now, what we're planning is that in Meteor 1.4, we're going to ship the latest version of Node 4, which I think is a wise decision for the time being, because Node 6 still doesn't work with all NPM packages out there that Meteor users might care about, including some that we use in core. I'm sure that'll come around, and without us actually putting in much effort into that update process. So Node 6 will become a good choice at some point soon. For the time being, though, Node 4 has been around for a long time, is super stable. So I feel pretty confident about the upgrade in 1.4. Also, the effort that went into supporting different versions of Node and the underlying V8 JavaScript engine and its embedding API will pay dividends when it comes to changing the version of Node again. In fact, it already makes it so that if you're willing to do a little hacking, you can just replace Node 4 in Meteor 1.4 with Node 6 and probably mostly get away with it. I can talk to you if you're interested in doing that. So upgrading Node is the biggest thing that's coming in 1.4. In the same vein, though not quite as monumental, is upgrading the version of MongoDB, or the version of the MongoDB driver that Meteor ships with, so that I believe it was Mongo 2.6 previously, and now it's Mongo 3.2. That's important if you're using an external Mongo provider like compose.io because they've switched to Mongo 3.2. So, you should too. And Meteor 1.4 will be an easy way to do that. Both of those changes are more or less backwards compatible with the caveat that if you're using NPM packages with binary dependencies, which is something like 10 or 15% of NPM packages, at least of like the top 1,000 NPM packages. I saw a stat recently. Then you may need to have a compiler tool chain installed on your computer, but it's the same set of build tools that you would install for any kind of native development work. Or compiling anything on your computer. So Meteor 1.4 is exciting for those two reasons, and also for the core package unpinning. Meteor 1.5 is further off, so it's still somewhat in flux. And the way that we've thought about what we should prioritize for Meteor 1.5 has definitely changed. At one point, I was excited about taking the code that implements the Meteor command line tool and turning it into an NPM package so that you could NPM install Meteor, the build tool, as a dev dependency of an NPM package, and then use it to compile your code and publish it to NPM, and other people could use that NPM package without knowing that they were interacting with something that Meteor had produced. That's kind of a cool technical feat, but I think that's gotten deprioritized in favor of making sure that the integration between Apollo and Meteor, or GraphQL and Meteor, is really good, and actually makes current Meteor users want to start using GraphQL. I think one of the bigger enticements that comes along with that is, for a long time, we've promised that at some point we'll make it possible to use databases other than Mongo. It was never going to be a good idea for us to say, now we have SQL support, and there's this client-side library called MiniSQL, which is sort of like a SQL database, but in the browser. If we had to do that for every database out there, that would be a losing battle for us and the limited resources that we have at MDG. But GraphQL is very much, and for a broad spectrum of use cases, the answer to that very question. So in Meteor 1.5, I think you should expect, if you have a SQL data source, to be able to follow an article in the guide that helps you bring that data into your app using GraphQL and Apollo. So is that delivering on the promise of supporting SQL? I think in the most meaningful way that we could have delivered on that promise, it is. So that's the current state of affairs. And I have seen no roadmap internally for a Meteor 1.6, but maybe we'll get back around to turning the Meteor tool into an NPM package.